What is natural selection? Let's confront and correct common misconceptions we have on this topic. Natural selection is a key process contained within evolution that guides which traits become more common in a population. Evolution being the theory postulating that the various types of living things on Earth have their origin in other pre-existing types, and their differences are due to modifications in successive generations. Natural selection does not give an organism what it needs to survive. Individuals in each generation remain the same unless there is a source of variation. Variations which are heritable are acted upon by natural selection. There are several sources of heritable differences. While mutation is the only cause of new alleles, genes sometimes work together, and hence crossing over, independent assortment, and random fertilization may also lead to variant phenotypes by bringing different alleles of specific genes together. Differences which are not heritable include mutations in somatic or body cells and most learned behaviors or physical changes not based on genes. The right alleles or genes cannot be obtained by trying. For example, viruses are not intentionally getting resistant to antibodies. Mutations and other causes of genetic variation are random and not directed towards improvement or impairment. These variants may be detrimental, like Huntington's disorder, which leads to mortality, neutral, like unattached or attached earlobes, which do not affect survival, or beneficial, like opposable thumbs, which enable humans to do so much with their hands. The variety of a phenotype or character, known as traits, are inherited from parents regardless of whether they are beneficial, neutral, or detrimental. These traits are passed down randomly. The phenotypic variation present is acted upon by the struggle for existence. After all, the world we know is not overrun by organisms. This allows variations conducive to the survival and reproduction of their bearers, like opposable thumbs, which help their bearers create and wield tools, to become more prevalent in the population. The term survival of the fittest has been used in connection with natural selection, which seems to suggest that the strongest, fastest, and smartest will survive. But that is not the case. For example, no skin color is the best, but each may be the best suited to a different environment, as we shall see. The story of modern humans began in Africa, and early Homo sapiens are suggested to be dark-skinned. Dark skin is beneficial to humans in sunny Africa, where light is not limiting for the required vitamin D production. And dark skin prevents too much light from penetrating the skin and destroying folate, which is necessary for reproduction. But some humans caught the travel bug and spread from Africa throughout Europe and Asia. So humans began to live in areas with different amounts of sunlight. In each of these areas, by chance, individuals with light-colored skin appeared alongside individuals with dark skin due to the ever-occurring changes in the DNA composition of individuals. Pale skin is beneficial in areas with low UV levels, as sufficient light needs to penetrate the skin to produce sufficient vitamin D for survival. The low levels of light in these areas would not be sufficient to cause folate breakdown, and hence reproductive fitness would not be negatively impacted. Dark skin in areas of low light will block available sunlight, resulting in vitamin D deficiency, which reduces survival. So the prevalent skin color of people in an area is correlated to the sunlight received in that area and the ability to produce vitamin D and maintain folate levels. Thus, who or which individuals survive and reproduce is not random although the variations arise randomly. You cannot get order and complexity from random chaos alone. And while natural selection occurs when those best suited to the environment survive and reproduce, natural selection is not acting for the good of the species. As an example, we may look at attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, and schizophrenia, which are traits that might be challenging in daily life. But because they are associated with having risk-taking sexual behavior, there could be more individuals having ADHD and schizophrenia in future generations. Since reproductive success is an important aspect of natural selection, a previous hypothesis on the evolution of dark skin as a protection for skin cancer is unlikely to be true, as skin cancer has negligible effects on reproductive success. It is only phenotypes that affect survival and reproductive success that are subjected to natural selection. Just because an organ is not used does not mean selection will reduce its occurrence. So anatomical features with no apparent function, such as the wisdom tooth and the appendix, are still present in humans. In this discussion on natural selection, it must be noted that while genes are important to natural selection, the effects of genes may be mediated by lifestyle variables. For example, we see dark-skinned Inuits in Canada, which is not so sunny, because the dark-skinned people in this area consume foods high in vitamin D3 like fish and so survived. So if you are dark-skinned and have migrated to a not-so-sunny place, do remember to consume foods rich in vitamin D. Genetic changes may also be mediated by culturally based preferences. In my culture, for example, lighter-skinned individuals would find it easier to get a marriage partner and thus pass on their genes to the next generation. I wonder why lighter skin is seen to epitomize beauty and good. Even an evil cartoon character like Scar in The Lion King is darker than the good Mufasa. But whatever the reason, if darker skin reduces the chance of finding a mate and reproducing, it will reduce representation of the alleles for dark skin tones in future generations of that population. So the key points of natural selection are: 1. Individuals of a population have traits that differ, and these differences happen randomly. 2. The traits of those individuals that survive and reproduce will become more widespread in that population. 3. Natural selection works on phenotypes of the individuals in which the genes reside, not at the level of populations or species. But it leads to changes in the allele composition of particular genes and thus the frequency of different phenotypes in the population of a species. 4. Changes brought about by natural selection are restricted. As once a species has evolved a certain body plan, this constrains what it is capable of evolving next. So when we are discussing natural selection, we must be clear that 1. Mutations are not an intended nor adaptive response to a specific environmental agent. Mutations are random. 2. Transmission of alleles is not influenced by the environment. Inheritance is random. 3. Genes are a major cause of similarity between parents and offspring. 4. A trait or organ which is no longer beneficial for survival remain in the population unless they disappear by chance. 5. Changes in a population do not occur through a gradual change in all members of a population. Selection of individuals with beneficial alleles or genes changes the proportion of individuals in the population having these alleles or genes. Let us now check our understanding of natural selection with a few questions. You may pause the video while you think about your answer. Question 1. How did the different skin colors first arise in humans? A. The changes in the human skin color occurred because humans needed to be able to survive under different ultraviolet light conditions. B. Changes in the human skin color occurred by chance, and when there was a good match between skin color and environment, those humans survived and had more offspring. C. The changes in the skin color of humans occurred because the environment induced the desired genetic changes. D. The human skin color changed a little bit with each successive generation, enabling the organisms to become adapted to the environment. The answer is B, as random mutations and sexual reproduction produce variations which may be harmful, of no consequence, or beneficial. Mutations are not intentional, nor are they an adaptive response to specific environmental agents. Question 2. What types of traits are mainly passed down from parents to children? A. Behaviors learned during an organism's lifetime. B. Traits that were beneficial during the organism's lifetime. C. All genetically determined traits. D. Any characteristics that were positively influenced by the environment during an organism's lifetime. The answer is C, as genetically determined traits are the main cause of similarity between parents and offspring. Question 3. In the human population, what are the primary changes that occur gradually over time? A. The traits of each human within a population gradually changes. B. The proportions of humans having different traits within a population change. C. Successful behaviors learned by humans are passed on to offspring through their genes. D. Mutations occur to meet the needs of humans as the environment changes. The answer is B. While selection occurs at the level of gene and individual, it changes the proportion of individuals having specific traits within the population. Question 4. Natural selection operates on the dash of an individual organism. A. Phenotype, B. Environment, C. Genotype, D. Survival. The answer is A. Phenotype. The interactions between individuals and their environment is what determines whether their genetic information will be passed on or not. Question 5. Who is the most fit? Individual A because he has the most number of surviving children. Individual B because he has lived to a ripe old age. Individual C because he is the strongest. Individual D because he is the most aggressive. The answer is A, because organisms which have the most reproduction can pass on genes to more offspring, and so organisms with those genes will be represented by a greater proportion in the population. Question 6. Why was the hypothesis that protection from skin cancer provided selection for the evolution of darker skin in our human ancestors dismissed? A. Because skin cancer does not usually arise until after an individual's peak reproductive years. B. Skin cancer is not related to ultraviolet light. C. Skin cancer affects reproduction. The answer is A, because most fatal forms of skin cancer peak after reproductive age, so while skin cancer is related to ultraviolet light, it is unlikely to cause the proportion of light-skinned individuals to reduce. Question 7. Organs which are not used, A, will not disappear if the fitness of the individual is not influenced by that organ. B, will disappear after many generations as it has no function in survival. C, will not disappear as humans are no longer under natural selection. D, no correct answer. The correct answer is A, as natural selection only affects traits which influence survival and reproduction. I hope you were able to answer the questions correctly. If not, review the video again or go through some of the references provided. Do look out for the upcoming video on ethical considerations of artificial selection of humans, that is, eugenics. The video will discuss ethics using examples such as the selection of intelligence, as in Singapore's 1983 policy to encourage marriage and childbearing among graduates. Thank you.